Golf Smarter Mulligans, number 53. I'm Fred Greene. This episode was originally published in July of 2008, and it's kind of funny how impressed we are by this new platform called Skype. I'll include the full guest intro right after I tell you that Golf Smarter Mulligans is brought to you by two guys with golfballs.com, offering premium used golf balls that are closer to brand new than anything you'll ever find on a golf course. And you'll pay a fraction of what you can find anywhere else for new balls. Each ball they receive from vendors across the country are hand-inspected, sanitized, and graded for quality in 3 categories of eagle, birdie, and par. If you want the indistinguishable ball from brand new, try to say that fast 3 times, well, then make sure you order eagle quality. That's two guys with golfballs.com. Our guest today is on a mission. He truly believes that his method, called target-oriented golf, I'm quoting from his DVD now, arms you with the theoretical foundation and proven practical routines that are guaranteed to give you consistency. In an email exchange with Colin Cromack, he said to me, "Understanding attentional focus the way I do, I can see only one golfer demonstrate that he plays target-oriented golf, and his name is Tiger Woods." Colin is in Australia, so we use Skype for this interview. Welcome, Colin.
Good morning, Fred. How are you doing? It's great to talk to you, sir.
I love the fact that you're wishing me a good morning because it's the end of my day. But you are in Australia, and I am here in California, and I love Skype because we're allowed to speak to each other across the world about the same topic, and that's golf.
It's fantastic. It's the best piece of software ever invented, Fred, and it's the way I support all of my clients around the world. They can talk to me just the same way as we're doing today. And
you do have clients around the world that you're able to speak to, and hopefully some of them will be Golf Smarter listeners very soon.
Indeed, they are already.
Well, is that how you found us? You found us, right?
Well, I think one of my clients contacted you, Fred, and asked you to have a look at a little bit closer at what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think you're right. My bad. Okay. Well, thank you for sending the DVD, and I did get to review it, and it's called Target-Oriented Golf. Just the name alone resonates very highly with me, but I want to ask you, can you please explain Target-Oriented Golf?
I would love to, Fred. It's very interesting. The actual concept of targeting in golf is something that I find has not been very well understood, and I'd like to be able to explain the concept of targeting with you by going through a little exercise which I think your listeners will relate to and is described also on the DVD. The reason why I produced the DVD, first of all, Fred, is that there are many, many DVDs that help explain the technical side of golf, and there are many books that explain the psychology side of golf. Mm-hmm. But there are no DVDs that were actually explaining the psychology of golf. And so the whole concept of giving people a visual picture of the psychology of golf is significant, in my opinion, because it allows people to formulate a much bigger understanding than simply reading about this information.
I agree with you. But unfortunately, we can't show them anything today on this program, but we can explain it.
Let's talk about targeting, Fred.
Okay.
Let's pretend for a moment that I've given you a ball that you're now holding in your hand, and I'm standing opposite you. I want you to throw that ball to my hands, Fred, as I put them into different positions. So can you now imagine where your focus of attention is as I am moving my hands to different locations?
Well, I can tell you right now, because I am holding a ball, I am not looking at the ball, I am looking at your hands.
Fantastic. Your eyes are on my hands, and your attention are on my hands. Is there any anxiety in this process? Are you quite comfortable with throwing this ball to that target?
As long as you're not standing in front of anything that's glass, I feel fine.
Fantastic. So the target itself is not anxiety-inducing, is it?
No, not at all.
Okay. Now, this is very important. The target is not anxiety-inducing. Now, if I continue to move my hands around, you have no problem throwing this ball. If I now put my hands behind my back and ask you to throw the ball at the target, what happens, Fred?
I'm getting a little nervous because now I've got to make sure it's a perfect shot that reaches behind your back and not hit you in the head.
Well, typically what's happening in your mind, Fred, is you've immediately said to yourself, where's the target?
Yeah.
Where am I supposed to be throwing this ball? You no longer have a focus of attention. The target itself, Fred, not being present, is creating that anxiety. Let me turn you sideways now and put you in a position of a golf swing.
Okay, I will do that.
I'm not going to move. I'm going to ask you now to continue to look at my hands, observe where my hand is, return your eyes back to the ground, have a nice release of breath, and throw the ball to my hands.
You're not moving it, right?
No.
Okay.
So in essence,
already there's anxiety.
Okay, where's the anxiety?
That I'm standing in a dress position, so I'm looking at the ball, not the target. And so I'm not exactly sure where I'm aiming.
You notice what's happened is what you're looking at is very different to where your attention needs to be. What I'm saying to you is when you're in that address position and you're looking down at the target, you need to be confirming to yourself that you can actually see that target visually. You have to stare at it. You have to create a visual memory of that target so that when you return your eyes to the ball, your mind and your attention stay on the target.
Now, you're not suggesting that I keep my focus on the target. I should be looking back at the ball, correct?
Absolutely. If you do not retain your focus on the target, what are you swinging at?
Just the ball.
Ultimately, you've lost the target.
Right. My target has changed. It's not what I was looking at before, where I'm aiming. The target is now just making contact with the ball.
But what are you swinging at, Fred? The target's disappeared. You see, you've lost the focus of your attention. Mm-hmm. You switched your attention away from the target.
Correct.
You've now switched it ultimately back to the ball. Some people switch it to the takeaway of their swing. Some people switch it to the trees, the out of bounds, the water. They've lost the focus of their attention.
Excellent point.
By not loading it into their visual memory. There is a brain function that we have to understand, Fred, for attentional focus, and it's called the visuospatial sketchpad. It allows you to retain images in your mind for a very brief period of time, 1 to 2 seconds. And it's that function which we absolutely must use to be able to play golf. You may have often heard people talking about eye on the ball but mind on the target.
Sure.
Well, that's how we play golf. This is important. The target itself never created any anxiety. It was your concern about the outcome. All of a sudden, your attention switched away from the target and you started to be concerned about where am I supposed to be hitting the ball to?
Yeah, many people that we've spoken to about the mental game have always tried to steer us away from worrying about the outcome.
Absolutely. But the target is not the outcome. The target is in the present, and it's ultimately what you need to be loading into your mind as you initiate your backswing. Let me explain it another way. Attentional focus is a bit like the old movie projectors. You know, when you had a film being shown and you had a film running through the projector, the lens itself is your attentional focus. So what actually is being projected at that very moment is what is the focus of your attention. The information that's streaming through your attentional focus, Fred, can be information from external auditory, internal auditory, and visual sources. Now, typically what happens, Fred, is that in normal day-to-day life, we as human beings have no concept of where our focus of attention is at any moment in time. And what target-oriented golf is all about doing is slowing down the projection of that film so that you can slow it down to a point where you know exactly what you're putting in front of that camera lens before you initiate your backswing. Let's take another example, if I may, because I like to use visual representation for people because I think it helps you relate to the concept better.
Oh, absolutely.
When you drive your car along the road, Fred, where is your conscious mind when you're driving your car?
On the road ahead.
Where is your conscious mind when you're driving your car?
On the road ahead.
I disagree.
Ooh, I failed.
Your eyes may be on the road ahead, but a conscious mind can be anywhere in time.
I didn't really want to admit that.
In fact, you may be thinking about a meeting that you're heading off to and feeling anxious about it because you're wanting to perform successfully. You may be thinking about an argument you had with your missus when you left in the morning and also feeling anxious about having to go back home and apologize. Your mind, whilst you're driving, is time traveling. And invariably, you can be experiencing an awful lot of anxiety when you're driving your car because you're actually living and experiencing events that aren't within your control at that time. You're thinking about things that are out of your control, and that's what's creating the anxiety. Now, the important thing, Fred, is that if your conscious mind is away with the fairies, who's driving the car?
Are you waiting for an answer from me on this one? Because I already failed this test.
Car, Fred?
Me, I'm driving the car.
Yeah, but what part of you is driving the car? The subconscious part of you is driving the car.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you can allow your subconscious to drive a vehicle where your life is at risk, why can't you allow your subconscious to swing a golf club or to putt a golf ball? You see, what happens is your subconscious is very capable of doing everything in your life that you allow it to do. Once you go through a learning process, which I describe on the DVD, you'll recognize that the way you become intuitive at anything is by passing it into your subconscious domain. So ultimately, when you're driving your vehicle, you went through a process of having an instructor next to you in the car. At that time, you were going through a process which is called conscious incompetence, where the instructor was directing you how to change the gear and the clutch, and you weren't very good at it because ultimately you were too busy focusing on how to control the vehicle.
Sure.
But through repetition, you started to demonstrate some real competence. You started to move up this learning curve to a place where you became conscious competent.
Okay.
But how did you eventually get to that place of unconscious competence for driving? How did you allow yourself to become so trusting that you no longer think about the act of driving?
Repetition?
Repetition is one thing, Fred, but the most important thing is you switched your attention away. You switched your attention away from the control of your actions to the road ahead. You started to drive. And this process of learning is the same for everything else we do in our lives. If you learn, can you play a musical instrument by any chance?
Not anymore.
What could you play?
I played drums as a kid.
Okay, you can still play them, Fred. You know full well if you get down onto a drum kit, you'd start to be able to bang out a tune. This is important because when you learn how to play an instrument, for instance, I played the guitar, you spend a lot of the time through repetition focusing your attention on your actions of controlling the hands to try and formulate the chords. And whilst you're actually doing that, Fred, you're not actually playing music. You're trying to control your actions and building a confidence with the instrument. Eventually, through that repetition, you switch your attention away from the control of your actions to reading the music, and you start to play, you start to perform. Why am I telling you this? It's very important for golf.
Well, I was thinking just now that the unconscious competence it makes me think of all these people that I've played with who started when they were very young and just don't stress as much about playing as those of us who start in middle or later life.
The way we learn golf, it is comparable. The way we learn golf, Fred, actually prevents us from moving to that state of unconscious competence.
Why is that?
When you have technical lessons throughout your life, you constantly drag yourself back into a state of consciousness. You're constantly trying to control your action. The only way you can get to that level of trust and unconscious competence of your swing and your putting is by stop paying attention to it. And that's the whole purpose of target orientation. If you are focused on the target when you are initiating your swing, Fred, you cannot be controlling your swing.
How do you get there?
How do you get to target orientation?
Well, how do you get to that unconscious competence?
You have no choice. You automatically do when you stop paying attention to it, Fred. You actually have to stop paying attention to your actions to get to that state of unconscious competence. So what I'm saying is, if all you do is spend your time on the range actually working at your technique, you prevent yourself from ever performing.
Wow.
And the other consequence of it, Fred, is that not only do you keep yourself in that state of conscious doubt, when you go out and play a round of golf, you immediately start to evaluate your technical abilities because that's the only thing that you've been practicing on the range.
Absolutely fascinating.
Well, it's actually very interesting, Fred, but there is a very, very big problem in the way we're ultimately taught the game, because we need to learn that besides learning technical competence, there is another element of golf where we need to learn how to stop paying attention to it. But that never happens, you see. So unfortunately, when people start to have technical lessons, what happens is your attention is drawn to whatever body part you happen to be paying attention to in that lesson. It might be your grip, it might be your stance, it might be the takeaway, it could be any number of things. But what happens is you start to try and hit golf balls whilst your attention is on those body parts. Not only are you actually trying to control your action, and that subsequently impacts your ability to swing, but whilst your attention is on that, your attention is not on target. So you end up hitting golf balls badly because you've got no target in mind. But what's happening is because people don't understand the concept of targeting at that early stage, they start to believe that their poor technique is causing the poor outcome. Can you understand this?
Yeah. It just makes me think that you probably don't have a lot of friends in the golf teaching industry because don't they focus more on making sure you're concentrating on these elements of your body and your parts and things like that? Are you getting a buy-in from other golf teachers on this?
No. But that's because they haven't been taught these skills either, Fred.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can only coach what you've been coached.
Yeah, sure.
And what I'm saying is that this is not done maliciously. People coach what they've been coached, and what the technical coaches do is excellent. They provide a great foundation for your house. But you must learn how to stop paying attention to the foundations in order to build the house. I'm not trying to suggest you don't need technical instruction. That's the last thing I'm saying here. Mm-hmm. You actually have to learn technical proficiency, as we've discussed, through going through that repetition process.
Right.
But then you need to be taught how to switch your attention away from your actions and onto playing golf.
And my question wasn't malicious in that sense of saying you're not getting any friends, but I'm just curious if, you're absolutely right. They don't understand. That's not what they teach. So it's getting to the next level after you've gotten from the conscious incompetence to conscious competence and then onward to the unconscious competence.
Absolutely, Fred. As I say, I'm teaching a paradigm shift, sir.
Absolutely.
This is not something that people can easily embrace. It's a bit like trying to convert a Christian to Islam. It's not going to happen for many, many people. But I can assure you that if you look around the world and you look at how much frustration and misery is being experienced on every golf course, there's something seriously wrong in the way we're taught the game of golf. And that, again, is something that I'm trying and hopefully going to be able to go to the golf institutions and help the coaches understand what I'm trying to teach. Because I can't change the world on my own. I need coaches on board to be able to understand how to get their players to that state of freedom. Anxiety, Fred, is the biggest killer of the golf swing. And the golf coaches know this. They can see their players are ball bound. They can see their players are anxious. In fact, on the range, they look great. And they look great because there's no emotional value associated with the practice. In essence, they're practicing on emotional mill ponds. Everything's easy. There's no value attributed to the practice. When you get out onto a golf course, all of a sudden, every shot means something. And what changes, Fred, is not the swing. It's the psychophysical relationship. Once your thoughts start to create adrenaline flow within your body, your swing can no longer perform the way it ever did on the range. It's very interesting. Sorry, I talk a lot, Fred, but as I said, this is information that I think needs to be understood.
Not a problem, Colin. I'm enjoying this, and I think it's very fascinating, so please continue.
When people are standing on the range, Fred, practicing their golf, what I see are ball raking exercises. Mm-hmm. They have a bucket of balls, they drag a ball in front of them, hit it, react to the outcome, drag another ball, hit it, react to the outcome, constantly assessing their actions. Where on the golf course do you ever get an opportunity to do that?
Well, if you're playing by the rules, you don't. Although I have seen people do that.
You'd have to be a pretty bad golfer to get the opportunity to hit the same golf club to the same target on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
People don't practice how they play, Fred. What happens is that they end up believing on the range they've got some kind of technical competence. They go onto the golf course and all of a sudden they've got one chance to hit the ball at a target. And more often than not, they neither have a target in mind, but their arousal levels are so high, they're unable to focus their attention.
Sure, they'll focus on things like the golf club. Oh, I don't hit this club that well. Oh, that distance. Oh, the water. You're not focusing on your target, right?
Golf's fantastic game to me, Fred. It's so much more than swinging golf clubs. It teaches you about yourself as a human being. And what I love about it is it catches and it finds you out very quickly if you don't have emotional maturity. Emotional maturity is what's required to be able to play the game of golf. And when I see a player on the golf course, after he's hit a bad golf shot, assessing his swing and trying to suggest that it wasn't him that caused the problem but his golf swing, he's abdicating responsibility for his actions. He's trying to protect himself. It's an ego defense mechanism.
Sure.
There's no acceptance, Fred. And let me go back to ask you a question. If I don't like to put you on the spot, but
you're going to anyway.
Absolutely, Fred, because it's an easy question I'm going to ask you. Why do you play golf, Fred?
It's the most difficult sport that I've ever played in my life. And the payoff is great.
Correct answer.
Whee!
There are no wrong answers here, so you're laughing. Now, the next question, Fred. When you're up to your knees in bushes, when you've hit your second ball into the water, when you've missed that little 3-foot putt for birdie, how do you feel, Fred?
Dejected, upset, frustrated. I played with a guy just last week. He made this amazing putt that probably went 70, 80 feet and stopped 5 inches from the hole, just to the side of it. I mean, his distance was perfect. It just missed by inches on the right side, and he threw his golf club out of frustration. It's like, how could you be angry at that?
He doesn't understand why he's playing golf, Fred. The answer. So you gave me an explanation as to why you play. You told me that you thought it was the greatest challenge. You're then telling me that whilst you're out on the golf course, you're feeling dejected and frustrated. Can you not see the paradox here?
Absolutely.
There's a real disconnect between those two answers.
Yeah,
You're telling me you're going out there for a great time. You come off feeling like you've been in the war. Let me explain to you something.
Please.
The answers that people give me when I ask them why they play golf are what I call extrinsic values. And I have not met one person yet who understood why he plays golf. Now that sounds a bit out there, but let me explain. When you're standing on the tee box, Fred, and it's a nice, beautiful day, you're absolutely at peace with yourself, and you send that little white ball high in the sky, and it soars and lands majestically on the middle of the fairway where you wanted it to go. How do you feel?
So good, I want to do it again.
And there lies the reason why you play golf.
Yeah.
What happens is when you have that feeling, Fred, you release a neurotransmitter within your brain called dopamine, and it makes you feel good. It's addictive, very addictive. It's so addictive, in fact, that when people take nasty drugs like cocaine, in essence, what that drug does is it blocks the reuptake of that dopamine. So it stays in your mind and it stays in your system, so you feel euphoric. Now, I'm not suggesting that golfers need to take cocaine. What I'm saying is that that's what you're doing. Every time you're successful with a golf shot, you give yourself a little hit of dopamine. And you know what? You want to experience it again. So you march off down the fairway with your clubs, looking for your next release of success. What happens when it starts to not materialize, Fred? You start to have withdrawal symptoms. You start to get frustrated. You're not getting frustrated by the outcomes of your poor shots. You're getting frustrated because the very thing you've gone out there to get, you're not getting. That's why you play golf. You have to connect to the human side of yourself and recognize, why are you taking this funny shaped stick and hitting this little white ball around this big field? What's the purpose of that? People who don't play golf think you're mad.
Yep.
They can't understand what you're getting from that exercise. And until you start to recognize why you're hitting golf balls, you can never have acceptance. You have a simple choice if you relate to this message. You will either get your hit and enjoy your shot, and that's what you're there for, or you won't, and you can just let it go and accept that that's all that's happened. You maintain a level of emotional control that way. You're not spending your time reacting to things which are totally detrimental to your ability to play the next shot. If you don't have acceptance after you've played your golf shot and an understanding of how to maintain emotional peace, you then start going off onto an emotional roller coaster in which you start to believe that all of a sudden this game of golf is really important and I need to get myself really focused for the next shot. You in essence start to create a change in your physiology purely and simply by these thought processes.
Well, so now we understand pretty much the concept of what target-oriented golf is. And as you had stated before, there are people this is going to resonate very loudly to, and some that are not going to really understand what you're talking about. And we recommend that everyone check it out. Go to targetorientedgolf.com. And if you are at all fascinated, you can pick up the DVD. Now, the DVD is $49 Australian.
That's correct.
Right, and I'm not sure how that translates to other parts of the world, but if you purchase the DVD online, you will not only get the DVD, but there's an added bonus that comes with the DVD. And Colin, why don't you go ahead and make this offer of your support that comes with it?
Absolutely, Fred. What I want people to understand is the theory behind target-oriented golf. So that's why I want people to have a look at the DVD. I actually want every child to be exposed to this product because I want parents to sit down with their children and really understand what golf is beyond technical ability. And once they've watched the DVD, they can call me for free for as long as they need to talk about the content of the DVD and how to apply it in practice. I do not charge for support of my product. There's only one cost of buying the DVD, which is very cheap, and then I support people for as long as they need it.
And that's an amazing offer. And if, because you're a podcast listener, you are also very familiar with your computer, Skype is a great way to go, because as we're doing here with Colin right now, this conversation that we've been doing all along is not costing either of us anything, because we're going Skype to Skype, and this is across the world. And that's the best way to have this kind of conversation with Colin, because he'll take as long as you need to give you a better understanding of the DVD target-oriented golf. Colin, I really appreciate your time. I think it's a fascinating concept, and it does resonate with me. I think there's some amazing elements to it. I appreciate your time. I'm going to spend more time with the DVD, because it's the kind of thing that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you very much for taking the time to talk with me, Fred. It's been an absolute pleasure.